In this video, we're going to go over zeros and graphs of polynomials. And first up, we have to factor p of x out in order to find the zeros of p, which is x squared plus 4, x squared minus 4. We can simplify x squared minus 4 further. And we can set them equal to 0. X squared plus 4 is never equal to 0. However, x plus 2 equals 0, x minus 2 equals 0 when x equals -2 and 2. So we found our zeros. And we're going to use -2, 0 and 2, 0 later in order to graph p of x. That was first step. And second step says find y-intercept. This means we have to set x equal to 0. And p of 0 equals 0 to the 4th minus 16, which is -16. So we're going to use 0, -16 in order to graph. Third step, find the end behavior. Since our degree is even, which is 4, and our leading coefficient is +1, positive value. We know that as x approaches infinity, y approaches infinity. As x approaches -infinity, y approaches positive infinity. So for step 4, we're going to use the x-intercept from step 1, -2 and 2, use test values beyond -2 and 2 and in between those two values to see whether we get positive or negative values. So if we get positive value, we have a graph above the x-axis. If we get negative value, we have a graph below the x-axis. So I'm going to substitute maybe -3. You can use -4, -5, doesn't matter, to our factor form. Then I know that -3 squared plus 4 gives me positive value. -3 plus 2 is negative value. -3 minus 2 gives us negative value. And when I multiply positive times negative gives us positive value. So we have a graph above the x-axis. Test points, I'm going to use 0, but from step 2, we know that we have y-intercept at 0, -16. -16 is negative, so we have a graph below the x-axis. Now I'm going to use another test value greater than x equals 2. You can choose 3, 4, 5, doesn't matter. I'm going to choose 3 and substitute to this factor form. So 3 squared plus 4 gives us positive. 3 plus 2 gives us positive value. 3 minus 2 also gives us positive value. So we have a graph above the x-axis. Now we can answer B. I'm going to use step 1, use -2, 2. And from step 2, we have a 0, -16. Also from step 3, if I look at as x approaches -infinity to y approaches positive infinity. And from sign analysis, we know that -3 or -4 and so on, we have a graph above the x-axis, which is this way. And in between -2 and 2, we have graph below the x-axis. And finally, we can graph the rest by looking at step 3 and 4 at the same time. As x approaches infinity, y approaches infinity, and we have a graph above the x-axis. So our final graph for p of x should look like this.